All right, we're going to talk about supply and demand. You might know the old jokes about that's really all economists ever say. You could teach a parrot to be an economist if you just teach the parrot to say squawk, supply and demand, squawk. But we'll go in a little more detail. We'll try not to be bird-brained. We'll start talking about idealized markets. Even though we know that, well, actually, a lot of the world is not ideal. But to begin with, we can imagine an ideal and then move on to add in some complexities. People buy and sell so many different goods and services. It's pretty incredible. Many of them are extremely specialized. A movie might hire an extra to be, person number 3 in a scene. They just want some kind of generic face. But then they also need to hire a star, some person who will make the movie. And often there's a very short list of possible people that could be. Sometimes just a single actor. Sometimes firms buy the labor of generic people, sometimes of very specialized individuals. The formers are more like commodities, but many of us are selling our labor and getting wages. There's a market. Now, not too many companies are just going to want to hire some rando. Although there are some firms that hire day laborers, and that's pretty close. But other hires go through many, many rounds of interviews. A lot of markets are really quite specialized. In this class on high-value crops, we'll concentrate on the process by which some outputs are distinguished from commodities. Now, in creating commodities, many people have worked really hard to make them standardized, make sure they're comparable. Make sure it's okay to ignore whatever remaining differences are there. This process is called commoditization, people creating commodities. But there's nothing inherent in the thing that would make it a commodity or not. It's transformed by how people view it. For instance, grocery stores buy apples as commodities. They're graded by quality, size, variety, but within that, they buy apples in bulk. Commodities. But when I go to the supermarket, I carefully look them over. I distinguish, this one looks better. Not bruised. I like the color on this one. Whatever. There's nothing inherent in the apples that makes them a commodity or not. It's just that one side of the transaction, the grocery store, views them as a commodity, while another side, the picky consumer, views them as a differentiated good. Coffee beans are sometimes commoditized. Contracts might specify bags of a certain grade of beans, even specify the details of the bag it's in. It took a great deal of human ingenuity and quite a lot of lawyers' billable hours to create that commodity. Just the same way a corporation might want to create a homogeneous good. And for instance, Starbucks creates Pike Place Blend, and they work to ensure that year to year and place to place, that's the same, even though the beans might be sourced in different countries. These abstract commoditized goods are useful in a lot of cases. For instance, we have coffee C futures from ICE. Each contract is for 37,500 pounds of green, unroasted Arabica beans from any one of 20 countries of origin, delivered to the US or Europe. Slightly different prices for delivery to different ports. Beans from Colombia, Costa Rica, Kenya, and Guatemala are worth more. From Brazil, gets a discount. There are also contracts from Brazil's BMF, Bolsa Mercadorias y Futuros. Sorry for my pronunciation. But again, a lot of specifications. Now, those are futures because companies can buy them in advance. Once these contracts are created, then the ICE exchange can create a new commodity, the spread between the coffee C futures and Brazil's BMF. Then they create options, the right to buy or sell at a specified price referring to those futures contracts. One abstraction is built on another. A lot of human work has this character. Now, sometimes you hear people say, it's not real, but so much of our reality is built on shared abstractions. I can go in a fancy coffee shop, buy an individualized cup of artisanal coffee where they tell me the names of the people who grew the beans. But I buy that with some green pieces of paper, another commodity that has been created by human society. So an idealized commodity trading in an idealized market has some basic features. We'll assume it's non-durable, so we don't have to worry about decisions, buy now, store it, or buy later. We'll assume it's a private good without externalities, so decision by the consumer about what to do with it has no cost or benefit to others. We assume many firms could offer good, many consumers could buy it, so nobody has control over the price. We assume this market is small enough relative to other markets, so don't have to worry about interdependencies. We assume that quantity and quality are known and verifiable, and transactions are all enforced. If we have an ideal market for an ideal commodity, then we can draw a supply and demand curve. On the horizontal axis, we have the quantity, how much is traded. On the vertical axis, we have the price at which it is traded. We're assuming that everybody pays the same price for all of what they buy. There's a market price that everybody knows. Supply curve is the upward sloping yellow curve, and the demand curve is the downward sloping blue. The intersection point is Q star and P star. I picked that out because it's important. So if this were the supply and demand of coffee beans, we'd see that at higher prices, people buy less, while they'd buy more at a lower price. Suppliers, on the other hand, would be willing to sell more if they get a higher price, while at a lower price, they'd sell a little less. Now, if we dig a little deeper, the demand curve for the individual is the extra benefit gained from consuming one more good. A rational consumer would consider costs and benefits, and if the market price is below the benefit of consumption, they choose to consume a little more. Now, there's likely to be diminishing margin of utility, of course. The first cup of coffee, oh, that's awesome. Really appreciated. The second is really good. And the third and the fourth and more, those are good. They're all good, but the amount of extra benefit is starting to decline. Compare with the cost and decide how much to consume. Rational people would consume if I buy one more of this commodity, then I get some benefit, but it would cost me the market price. If the benefit is greater than the cost, buy that more unit. If the benefit is not greater than the cost, then not buy one more. Now, as long as the marginal benefit tends to go down as I buy more, while the cost stays constant, then eventually I'll stop buying. The individual demand curve shows how many items this person will want to purchase at a given price. It slopes downward. Then we combine all the individual demand curves to get the market demand curve, how much we purchased by all the different people. If at a price of $10 a pound of beans, person A would want 3 pounds, person B 2 pounds, C would want 0, then the market demand is the sum of how much each person wants at a given price. Now, it's generally understood that certain prices are more salient in people's decisions to go from 0 to 1. Others are more salient as they go from 1 to 2 or 10 to 11. And for instance, a restaurant might have a special on appetizers, which are directed at people who've already decided to eat there. But the restaurant wants to encourage them to spend a little more once they're there. While on the other hand, the price of main courses, keeping those below a certain price point, that's more relevant to people deciding whether or not to eat there at all. There are a lot of complexities. We draw a simple line, but we know it's not really simple if you look deeper. People's choices about how much to demand depends on a lot of additional factors, not only the price of the good. Again, we're simplifying. One key factor is income. A poor person might have low demand for food. It's not that they don't want it, just they cannot afford it. Demand is how much money they can spend on this product. On the other hand, a person with more wealth can demand a lot more of an item at every price. That shifts their demand curve outward. There are other factors that can shift the demand curve: changing preferences, demographics, prices of related goods, etc. Then on the flip side, there's the supply curve. It's the opportunity cost of producing a certain quantity of output. If I'm running a coffee shop or serving coffee at a deli, how much does it cost me to sell some more coffee? I need to get more beans, and I got to grind them or purchase them already ground. I need more cups, more of each kind of milk, whole, soya, almond, oat, and whatever, More sugar, other sweeteners, more hot water, so I got to pay the energy to get it hot. I got to make sure there's somebody there to make it. As the market price goes up, each shop is willing to sell more, and also more shops are willing to sell it. And in greater varieties. Not too long ago, a deli would only sell coffee, and if you ask for almond milk, you get some stares. Now, more delis offer fancy options. They bought high-tech machines. Those increases in demand work up the supply chain. So if more people drink coffee, then coffee growers will sell more beans. Not immediately, maybe the next growing season. They'll plant more or fertilize more. But if the price of fertilizer goes up, then it becomes more expensive to buy beans and they'll be offered at a higher price. That would shift the supply curve inward and upward. Just as with the demand curve, so with supply, there are a lot of different reasons the whole curve might shift. Worse weather might shift the supply curve inward and upward. Better weather shift it outwards. This is short-run supply. As coffee bean prices have rocketed upwards, farmers sell more. Maybe they used to keep more for personal use, now they sell them in the market. In the longer run, farmers will plant more, so supply will be more responsive in the longer term. Farmers can plant more, but it takes time to grow it.